So VNR process is not the end of the whole thing. It's just a continuation of the whole SDGs implementation process, which involves the stakeholder engagement. So I think it's very important for all of us to, especially as a civil society, to get involved in the SDGs implementation process. We also discussed yesterday that with this rate, the data that the kind of data that we have, and the kind of engagement that we have, uh, and the outreach activities by the government, we may not be able to actually achieve the SDGs by 2065. So, but still, it's our job, it's our work to work passionately, what we have been doing for past few months, past 8 years. So let's so let's discuss about, how can we get involved. As we discussed that yesterday, there are 11 countries from Asia Pacific which are presenting VNR. So, some of those presentations we heard yesterday. We also heard the presentation from the experiences we heard from Malaysia. We heard from which all countries? Somebody would want to say which all country did we hear the VNR experiences?
Cambodia,
Vietnam,
Cambodia,
Vietnam,
and there was,
Pakistan.
Uzbekistan.
yes, we heard from Uzbekistan. So we have several such experiences, and I hope that you all can take it and understand. I will also share the recordings with you. But if you have any question, please feel free to ask. If you otherwise, we can start with the presentation. Today you will hear from Fiji, because Fiji is the country from Pacific, and they are presenting VNR for the second time. So we can hear the experience, how Fiji and the civil society of Fiji have taken the progress forward, and how they have kind of interacted with the government, and what was their experiences in the first time when they were presenting, and how it's progressed or it has gone down, and how is their interaction this time, and what are the strategies that they are trying to follow this year before the VNR, before the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development also we discussed. So let's hear from Fiji. So we have Vani from FCCOS. Vani, are you here? Vani is heading the Piango, the national platform for Fiji, the civil society coalition. And Vani, if you can hear us, because I know that you have to jump in some other meeting, or you're coming out of a meeting. So if you could share the experiences from Fiji, Vani.
Hi, Jyotsna. Can you hear me?
Of course, yes, loud and clear.
Thank you. I apologize for, perhaps I'll apologize in advance for sounding a little bit all over the place. I am currently in a board meeting, but I got a bit of the time wrong, but that's okay. I think that's in our stride as civil society, where we often get pulled into discussions and we have to be ready. Thank you very much for the invitation, Jyotsna, and I just bring you greetings from the Pacific, from your colleagues and your CSO family in Fiji. I appreciate very much the invitation that was extended. I know that Jyotsna was trying to pin down a time for me, and I appreciate her patience with me. Just to start, Fiji has just completed its national elections. We have a new government in place. It's a coalition of 3 parties. I offer this as background because we are essentially working with a government that is new, having had 16 years of rule by the previous government, which initially came into power as a military interim administration. There's a whole lot of civic spaces opening up in Fiji. But of course, Fiji has had its share of challenges, particularly in the last 5 years, where we've encountered many natural disasters, and of course, a pandemic that really devastated our tourism industry. That is the background that you might want to keep in mind as you're thinking about Fiji and how it's preparing towards the VNR this year. I just wanted to share that, we had done our reporting in 2019, and that was current. That was under the previous administration. That in itself was quite challenging. But in the end, Fiji civil society organizations had been able to set up a task force to look at how we would engage in the process. It was very restricted. We had a plan A and a plan B. Plan A was to contribute to a national report. Plan B was to gather whatever data we could as civil society organizations to produce a report, a mapping of some sort. And we did manage to do that. And if you Google Fiji CSO SDG report, you might be able to find it on a UNDP Pacific website. And so given that we were, dealing with both the recovery after the pandemic as well as preparing for disaster, our cyclone season is usually from November to April. FCOS plays a coordinating role during disasters. It's expected to coordinate all civil society interventions or humanitarian support. We were fully on standby from November, not only for that, but also because of the elections. And there were some expectations that there would be violence. And we had to prepare for that. So coming off that, as soon as the new government came into place, we were requested in January, late January, to meet with the VNR team from the Ministry of Finance. So the Ministry of Finance has a unit that is directly dealing with the monitoring of the SDG implementation and producing the report. And we have met with them. We found out that they had convened meetings in the last year during the previous administration's time. We were, of course, not invited as civil society organizations or local civil society organizations. We did hear that INGOs were invited to those meetings. We were pleasantly surprised that they took on a framework that we had suggested to them earlier on. FCOS had met with a team from the Ministry of Finance in 2022, early 2022, and shared with them some of the approaches that the Fiji CSO SDG Task Force had adopted to try and engage in this process, and that was to, cluster agencies into the thematic areas, the thematic areas of the goals. And we found that they had taken that framework. They've convened agencies around those themes to be able to gather data on that. While government doesn't have like a specific policy framework on SDG implementation, what they often, when we ask them questions about this, they often say that the National Strategic Development Plan, it's a 20-year plan, is adequate for that. So they've generally used that in the past. We understand that the new team or the team that is currently heading this has the participation of a Fiji Bureau of Statistics. And they have a statistical framework through which they will begin to gather data for this. When we met with them, we shared that we had tried to do a report. We couldn't because of the level of awareness with CSOs in 2019. wasn't too good. So we, of course, had to spend some time educating while gathering data so they could understand that some of this was already in their organizations for civil society, at least. I understand that much of what we had gathered as a mapping report to them, to the new VNR team, may not fit into the statistical framework. That's what I understood. So we have asked them to convene a meeting for civil society in March so that we can get an overview of that and understand what sorts of data they will require from us. However, after the meeting, I did tell them that, there's a lot of success stories that you can get from civil society to include in your report and make the quality better and make it more readable. They have started to prompt us for that. After that meeting, I had to send off an email to the former members of the SDG task force, CSO's SDG task force, to alert them that the government had started doing this. That I understood that they had had meetings without us from November to December, that they probably have a statistical framework, which they alluded to in their discussion in our meetings, that I provided contact details to the teams so that CSOs, if they wanted to engage directly, they could engage directly. And yes, so there is still a bit of ad hocness, maybe perhaps a lack of coordination in that aspect, particularly with regards to engaging NGOs. So coherence is something that may need some work. In terms of implementation, we're still using that, as I shared, using the national strat plan. So ad hoc, a little disjointed on that aspect. So you basically what the approach is that different agencies that have goals, so like the Ministry of Fisheries has often convened its own discussions, and you can see the level of understanding around the goals and the indicators are quite different when it's being done by perhaps Ministry of Finance. So there is no sort of coordination that we can see. It's very evident that there still needs to be that coherence amongst government agencies. In terms of a clear national plan for funding, there doesn't seem to be one. Our government doesn't have an aid monitoring or development cooperation coordination policy. And I raised that with the team when they came in Feb to meet with us. They didn't seem to know whether they had one. I had to tell them you don't, because we had done some work around development effectiveness, and we understood we had done some mapping in that regard. Is there progress on bringing together data? Yes. As I shared, the Fiji Bureau of Stats has a much more active role in this current attempt to report on the SDGs. We had a few officers who tried to explain to us what the statistical framework was going to be. I asked them if they could provide more clarity on that, perhaps even a presentation. They did not have a presentation on that. In terms of engagement, like an engagement strategy to ensure that there was, this broader partnership. I do not think there is one. There hasn't been any evidence of that in place. In terms of collaboration and partnership for VNR, I think we are quite optimistic. We now have a new government. We have spaces opening up. We did say that we will attempt to write to senior officials and perhaps even the ministers to share that the SDG or the VNR process is a national process. It is not just a government report. It is a national report. They seemed surprised by that. I will share that with you, although it's a little bit surprising. I can share with you that yeah, there is that sort of lack of awareness about what this really is. So I shared to them there is a difference between this and reporting on conventions and like the shadow reporting. This is very different. We have one report as a nation. We compile that together. That's why you need an engagement strategy. So all of this I had to explain in our January meeting. We understand that in all of these processes, INGOs, particularly INGOs that work in the environmental sector, because the Pacific is often focused specifically on the ocean goal as well as the environment one. So they have traditionally been part of discussions because also that they have access to global funding. That has been a mainstay of the public discourse on the SDGs concerning the ocean and the environment. We've been invited, so we've taken that meeting as an invitation to supply data, to review the evidence. I have shared to the team. They seem to be a very young team, that when you get to the UN, you know that the NGOs have the opportunities to interrogate some of what is contained in your report and even the process. The process is as important as the output, which is the report. So they seem to understand that. We have started discussing as civil society about whether we can raise awareness. There is some suggestion to now have, because at the last VNR reporting presentation by Fiji, there was a rep from the Fiji Disabled People's Federation that presented alongside a government minister. In our initial emails, there are suggestions that we have a gender rep. So there's some hope in that that CSOs will push through for excluded voices to be at the forefront. So there's, we're pretty optimistic about that. I guess the only challenges that might be preventing us, we now have political will for, engaging civil society, but we found in the 2019 process that we had to look around for funding to be able to engage, to produce the report, to attend HLPF. So that would probably be our biggest challenge this time around, as well as time. We see that there is some progression with regards to recognizing that the 3 pillars are interrelated. We can see that in the way they've structured the committees. And we hope that that will help us to really push through the other sorts of approaches that we're hoping will manifest in a better report for Fiji. Our last report was pulled off the website, the UN website, because of the quality of the report. I think one of our ministers wasn't satisfied with the quality of that report. So we are at that stage at the moment. Very, very initial stages, very preliminary. We are hoping to improve that. I haven't had time to come back to them, but we have proposed a time to meet as civil society organizations, and hoping to convene in March. I think that's that from us, Jyotsna. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much, Vani. I mean, you have discussed a lot. I mean, how Fiji is preparing, and one thing that I could understand, that the role of INGOs is very important. I mean, important as in, I am not sure, maybe I could not quite understand how is the role of FCOS, because you are heading FCOS, and how are you working with the INGOs to work towards the civil society process, or are you, because it looks like that you have a political will, but are you going to be involved, and how you're going to be involved in the whole VNR process? Because usually what happens is that the government solicit the CSO's input. There has been various processes actually, what we see across the globe, that sometimes they solicit the process, they ask the civil society organizations to provide their input. In other case, they finish the whole report, then they share the draft with the civil society, with and other stakeholder with some deadline, and then one has to provide the input. And in third case, there is no such thing, and they just present they just finalize the VNR. So how is the process in your country? I mean, in between, in these three, how is going to be your process?
I guess it's improved in the sense that they haven't produced the report as yet. They've provided a framework
Okay.
compared to the last time. So they provided a framework by which they will compile the information. The statistical framework may limit how civil society or might want to engage, but I'm hoping that, so apart from the statistical framework, what I've suggested to civil society organizations is to begin looking at success stories that they can submit for each of the goal. We're pushing our luck here because we know that democracy has been restored in our country, true democracy. So we are demanding for more, in that we want to be in the committees, the intergovernment agency committees, to be part of those three thematic areas, and to discuss with them how the content should be shaped. I understand that there is consultant group that's coming forward to compile and to write that report. So if you're looking for a short answer, yes, it's certainly improved in that nothing has been drafted as yet. They've given us a framework, they've given us a timeline, and they have invited us in that sense. So things have improved perhaps 50 to 70%. We still think there's still room for improvement, as we often do as civil society organizations. Yes. So we'll see what March brings for us, Jyotsna and colleagues. Thank you.
That looks great. I mean, so there's a remarkable improvement from the 2019 Vienna when you presented. And do you also have some regular policy dialogue, or they have just given a framework which you have to fill in, but does it also involve some regular policy dialogue? Usually the government, the national government and various provinces, I mean, we see that they organize various national consultations with the civil society and other stakeholders. So is there also in process in Fiji?
So basically, I'm pushing, FCOS is pushing for a CSO specific perhaps orientation, because we weren't part of the November-December consultations. There were some INGOs, and as I explained, they usually are the INGOs that have access to major global funding. It's local CSOs, NGOs that often get left out. But we're quite hopeful, because by Jan they had, with the new government in place, they called into our office to explain what the process is. We've been given a template to look at, to answer questions, but we're pushing for a face-to-face meeting. So yeah, we have our fingers crossed.
I think that's a great thing, because FCOS is the National Civil Society Organization, and you have a very greater role to play actually. So, and I know Vani, looking at how actively you have been participating and in all the issues. I mean, we also have our fingers crossed that we expect a good example from Fiji, where the civil society have a formal inputs in the VNR. Apart from that, are you, just last question, Vani, are you also planning to do some sort of outreach as a civil society, as a national platform? Are you planning to also do some outreach on the VNR process? And second, are you also planning to do some sort of your own VNR, your own civil society reporting? So because I remember you did the reporting even last time. So are you also, apart from getting engaged in the whole VNR process, are you also planning to have your own reporting civil society?
Well, the last email I sent, I did ask that because we had made an agreement in 2019 that the coordination be rotated. So also to provide an opportunity for other civil society organizations to build capacity around this. I brought it back. I guess I prompted the members of the SDG task force if they wanted to take that on. We don't currently have resources. I found out the worst way in 2019 that you'll need resources to do this work effectively. So I was quite reluctant to receive the VNR review team even when they came to the office, because I could not commit to helping them. But I after having heard, um, we have been approached by Piango. Piango has asked if we're up for it, because they have secured some funding, or will secure some funding to support that process. So I usually say this, but I usually don't have a choice, because we're a platform organization. When members compel us, we will do it. Yes. If that answers your question, Jyotsna.
Thank you so much, Vani, because we are also quite excited, and we are looking forward, because as you all know, and we have seen even the role of United Nations. I mean, how it has changed, Vani, and you have also worked with them very closely in your region, and also in Asia Pacific region. We see that before the COVID, UNSCAP used to fund about 35 participants for even APFSD. Besides, apart from inviting all the member states. But after COVID, last year, we remember that they funded, I think, 3 or 4 participants from all over Asia and Pacific. So the role of, UN is also kind of, I would not question, but it's not very satisfactory. So basically, the civil society is supposed to generate their own fund, because in our discussion with the UNSCAP head, she said that, why don't you also help us raising the fund? So it was quite hilarious, because we are struggling with our own issues, especially including the fund. And when UN is asking us to raise funds for them, so this was a kind of we were confused. We did not know what to answer. But we so do not expect much from the UN, but maybe the member states could help. We have seen in some of the cases, for example, in Malaysia, I remember last year, for the second time when they were presenting, the government of Malaysia had some civil society delegates. I mean, formally they were part of Malaysian delegate who were funded by the Malaysian government, although they were not allowed to speak on behalf of the country, but they were invited, they were funded to join a high-level political forum. So there are some sort of cases which we have seen, but I really hope that because of the change in the government in Fiji, you get more spaces. We hope to see you in New York as well. And this year is also very important. I mean, we have this high-level political forum, then we have SDG summit. So we really hope that, we hope to see you and see what kind of work, we are doing. And I also hope to see you during during the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, because Fiji is, great example. And more than the Fiji government, I mean, the civil society for all the countries, for me, the civil society, they have played a greater role. So I believe that we can get some positive example this year from all the countries, including Fiji, Vani. So thank you for that. And guys, if you have any questions, thank you. So if you have any question to Vani, because I know I have asked her a lot of questions, but so that, you all can understand what the VNR process, how it has been. And since most of the countries are presenting VNR this year for the second time, there's no country which is presenting for the third time in this year, but all the countries which are presenting, they come up with a certain experience from the last year. So it's really nice to see how the countries are progressing. It's very important for us to get involved in the process. And I would request you all, please, if you are a national platform, even if you are individual platform, or you are an individual person, please do some sort of capacity building on the VNR process, because it's very important for everyone to get engaged in the process. As I said, this is not just one-time process that the country is presenting VNR, so we get involved. But please get involved. Solicit, if they don't solicit your inputs, then we have other mechanism. We have our own civil society report that we present. There are side events and the lots of things that happens. There's just one thing, Vani, I wanted to ask before you. I know you have to go to another meeting. Are you also planning to do some side event during APFSD?
Not quite at the moment. I think we have some Fiji civil society organizations that are planning that had come from the Fiji women's rights movement. They have strong links in the Southeast Asia, their network, their feminist organizations. I think they often organize side events, and they did indicate that they were doing some work around that. So if you don't see FCOS, you will certainly see a Fiji CSO perhaps organizing a side event there.
That's a great thing, Vani. So we are, and to everyone who is planning to be there in Bangkok, we are organizing 2 side events, and both are accepted. One is on VNR because we work on VNR for Asia Pacific. So, and we are also writing a fact sheet, VNR fact sheet for Asia Pacific, which we present to the APRSM and the UNSCAP. So we will get back to you on that. But I have sent some of the questions to all of you. And so, Vani, I would really want you to be one of the speakers for our VNR side event and present Fiji's case. By the time you'll get more clarity, how is the situation, how we can go further. So thank you so much. And thank you so much, Vani. And guys, so now if you have any question, please feel free to ask, or else we can move to our second presentation. We have Ahmed Nizam from Maldives. So we'll hear from him. But if you have any question, please feel free to ask. Looks like I have clarified everything, all the questions. And thank you so much.
So just, are you going to present it for me, or giving me the rights to share?
I
have already emailed it to you.
Did you? Okay, sorry, Nizam.
Yeah.
So I can present, I can just try, because I'm not very I don't know, this is the new thing for me. Somehow I missed giving the co-host thing, but I will try to see if I have received your email. I have not yet received, Nizam, but maybe you can WhatsApp me, or you can put it here, right here in the chat box. I can open from here. And before Nizam starts, Nizam is also heading the Maldives Civil Society, Maldives Civil Society organization, which is a national civil society platform. And Maldives has been very, very, engaged in many other processes, but somehow their presence in the VNR process has not been of, even last time when they were present. This year, Maldives is presenting for the second time. So we really wanted Maldivian civil society to get involved. I remember last time when Maldives were presenting, there were a disability group, which was a part of the whole process, VNR group. But if the Maldives civil society organization get involved in the process, this means that we ensure the participation of all the civil society thematics in the VNR process. So I think that's an important thing that you would want to, and please, I would also want you to see how Maldives has prepared themselves for the VNR this year, because it's very important for the civil society. As we say, we discussed yesterday that the para 73, 72 that talks about the multi-stakeholder engagement, the role of civil society. And one thing also I wanted to share, that we discussed the shrinking civic space yesterday. There was some discussion even today. So I would just say that, none of the VNR actually so far has mentioned, no problem how much they have progressed and they have worked with the civil society, but no VNR has ever mentioned the shrinking space, this shrinking civic space for the civil society issue. So I think this only comes from the civil society. And so I believe that, you can keep an eye on what's happening in your country, and how can we, work together, how can we work with different different partners and stakeholders. So with that, so I would want to thank Ahmed Nizam uh, again, and I would present his PPT. And Nizam, just give me 1 sec so that I can show you presentation here.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
can all see?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Um, Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm Ahmed Nizam. You can call me Nizam. I'm from the Maldives NGO Federation actually, and I'm not so experienced in the VNR process. I mean, it's I have been actually involved in this until only very recently, and then. Um, we have actually I don't know, it's a coincidence or something. We have received an invitation yesterday from the Ministry of National Planning that this afternoon we have the civil society discussion
Oh,
on the VNR process, where the government has invited a lot of CSO, a lot of NGOs, and we are also part of that. So our team will also be attending it this afternoon. So based on what I have gathered, since I'm very new to this process, I have just tried to be very brief on this presentation. And yeah, so it's not much, but from what I've gathered, we have a well-established coordination mechanism for these SDGs. In fact, our coordination mechanism or the steering committee at national level was established in July 2016, and there is a SDG unit established with initially it was housed within the Ministry of Environment and Energy at that time, but it keeps on changing, because with the change in government and all these different ministries, the mandate of ministries change. And so now for now this SDG coordination unit is with the Ministry of National Planning, Housing and Infrastructure. So there is a separate unit coordinating this work, and I used to work in the same ministry with them when they were in the Ministry of Environment for some time. So, but I have resigned from the government now. But those days we had a close working relationship with them. And then there is a national ministerial coordination committee also established since July 2016. The SDGs were translated into local language in December 2016, and there are technical committees established as well for different areas since November 2016. So, in preparation for the coordination and in preparation for implementing the SDGs, that mechanism was very well carried out and yeah, been implemented. And when we look at the implementation, I would say yeah, the government has a policy framework on SDG implementation, which very well relates to existing policy frameworks such as the SEP or the Strategic Action Plan of the government. Even the current government has this SEP, which is in line with the SDG implementation policy framework as well. And I would say there is broader partnership and involvement of all most of the key national stakeholders in the national implementation of SDGs. And CSOs have been, although we started getting involved only now in this process, CSOs have been involved even in the previous VNR process, and even as an important partner, it's CSO recognized in the implementation of SDGs also. So I believe with the meeting we have this afternoon, I will have a more broader understanding of how the government also wants SDGs to be, I mean CSOs to be involved in this as well. Yeah, next. And looking at an overview of the SDG implementation here in the Maldives, the latest I have from the 22 reports is SDG index. We had 67 out of 163 in the SDG index rank, and the index score is 71, and there's a spillover score of 94.8 as well. And just to show, but I'll not be going through it, the SDG dashboard and trends, how different targets are, like what are currently on track or maintaining SDG achievements. Some of these are moderately improving, some of them are stagnating or decreasing as well. You see, there's 15 we are decreasing, which is life on land. Yeah. So this is how the dashboard looks like for now, based on 22 reports. Yeah. And some of the challenges, as I can gather from these reports and some discussions I had with key people involved, is the last report, even the VNR one, we are in fact submitting the second report. This is VNR 2, which we are going to submit this year. So this report, the previous report also identified challenges faced by the Maldives in implementing this agenda as a seeds country, a small island developing state. Collection and effective management of data across all sectors is one of the major challenges recognized in that report as well. And because we are an island nation with lots of islands scattered all over the country, and so it's not like most of the other countries. We, as a small island developing state, we have these challenges. So collection and effective management of data has been always a challenge in all these areas. And number two, while Maldives already has made some headway in sustainable development in sectors like health and education, more technical and financial support from domestic and international development partners are definitely necessary to successfully implement the SDGs. Especially given the challenges in capacity development and resource mobilization we have. We have a serious, I believe we have serious issues with capacity development and resource mobilization when it comes to all this development work. Basically, that's it from me. I don't know what kind of questions you will have, but I'm not. Please bear in mind that I'm not very experienced in this process. But if there's anything I can clarify, I'll be happy to.
No, don't worry, Nizam. We are not going to question you. We can only help you. And even if I'm asking question, it will be only because we wanted to know how far, how can we help, how can we extend help to you, to civil society in Maldives. So that would be the idea behind asking question. It's a
Yeah,
good, it's a very positive sign, Nizam, that you have been invited by the government. So we'll see, because I remember last time there was no such involvement of they were very a thematic group. I think, as I said, only the disability group
yeah.
somehow part of the whole process. But this year, if you have been invited, I think that's a good sign that that means the entire civil society has, they can provide their inputs. So I wanted
Yeah.
to know, maybe not at this time, maybe after some time, I can ask you how was the meeting, but maybe some of the questions that maybe you can ask your government would be, what is the framework? Because we've just heard from Fiji. Fiji also did not have that kind of involvement in the first time when they presented in 2019. But this year, the government of Fiji, they have come up with a framework, that framework on the VNR, through the framework, they are soliciting inputs from various stakeholders and the civil society, and with a deadline. So basically in that framework, they are giving, the civil society will be providing the answers, and there were inputs, and that will be incorporated in the VNR. So maybe you can ask if there is some sort of framework in your government, that government is going to provide, how they are going to take the inputs from the civil society. I think this is very important for you to know, because if they are not providing a framework, then are they asking you to write some chapter? It has never happened actually, but generally I'm asking. Or they're asking you to write some particular topic about civil society, or how it is going to be, how the civil society of Maldives are going to be engaged in the VNR process is very important. Number two, that you have to ask what kind of consultations that the governments are taking. Are they organizing consultations, the national consultations across various islands? And how you, and in that process, maybe you as a civil society, national civil society platform, can get engaged, you can also invite all your members and partners from when these consultations are taking place. So these are the two things that you really need to be aware of when you're asking questions about the nature of involvement of the civil society, and the second, what kind of consultations. So this is about basically the government process that we're talking about. And the third thing that I would say that uh, every year the government, we have through APRSM, we ask some of the civil society, all the VNR countries actually, to present the civil society statement. So you have to be also prepared for that, to make the civil society statement during Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, and later in New York High Level Political Forum. So you, through APRSM, we also organize this. Some of our members, partners, they will also get in touch with you. I will provide your contact details, Nizam. So they will get in touch with you. I will also be part of that, but some of them will be like really asking you, helping you to maybe prepare your civil society statement for the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, which is being organized from 28th to 31st of March. So you have to be prepared for that also. That means you have to closely monitor the whole process in the country, and on the basis of that, you can prepare the statement. So we will be helping you out for that. So these are some of the supports that I'm talking about. We will also try to find you some support to at least couple of you, or we'll see how you, at least one person or some of you, could at least travel to Bangkok for APFSD, or if not, then how can we engage you on virtual platform. So this kind of support that we provide, all of us, ADA is a national civil, regional civil society platform. We work very closely with the UNSCAP. We work very closely with the APRSM. So with them, we write the Asia Pacific VNR fact sheet. And in that fact sheet, we also mention all those the good practices and the challenges. So maybe this will be all helpful to you, Nizam.
Yeah, definitely. I think when we have the meeting today, it's more like a coordination, or more like a discussion we have with the I think they have with the civil society organizations today. So I think most of I'm also expecting to get answers to most of the questions you just raised. How they are going to involve civil society organizations in this whole process. I think we would know that today, and I'll definitely try to get answers from them on that, how they intend to do that. We also want to understand it, and definitely based on the discussions we have had before, like with you, between us, we also want to get more involved in this whole process this time, and then definitely we'll be working together on this. Your help will be much appreciated for us to actually move forward on this. Thank you so much. Just
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nizam, because we really expect all the VNR countries at least to be active, and at least be aware what's happening in the country. Not only because of they are presenting VNR, but that gives an opportunity for everyone to get involved in the process. So I think that's a very good indication that you have been invited. So please look at that, look at those questions, and see how you can get involved. You can see some of the challenges. Definitely, but to be prepared also for civil society statement, because that's something you don't need to always be critical of your government. You can be critical, you can also present some of the good examples what the government has done. So we will come back to you on that. So if you have anything, please feel free to get in touch with me, and we'll provide you all those support that you wanted. We have been doing it this past 8 years actually. we are providing support to various civil society organizations. We try to help the civil society organizations to go to Bangkok or go to New York and present the civil society statement. As I said, that Malaysia, I remember last time Malaysia was presenting for the second time, and a couple of our colleagues from the civil society, they were part of the formal delegate of Malaysian government, although they were not allowed to speak on behalf of the government, because we were told that we have invited them, we have funded them, but then we don't allow them to speak anything on behalf of the country. So this could be a thing, but then you can also ask your government, if you are going to be part of the Maldives delegate, where the delegate as a civil society representative in Bangkok for the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, and later in New York. So you at least the whole thing, how you're going to get involved, how the engagement process is going to be with your own government, and how can you get engaged in the whole national and the regional and the global process. So definitely we'll be there to support. So
Yeah.
anyone, if you have any question, so so that's what I was saying, that the intention is, by asking question, we just wanted to explore how can we help you. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any other
Thank
question?
you. Thank you.
Thank you. So today, basically, we have all the island nations. So yesterday we had all the landlocked states. We had Vietnam, Cambodia, and we had Uzbekistan. Today we have the island nation. We had started with Fiji, then we have Maldives, and now we are going to have a next presentation from Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has not prepared is not presenting VNR for this year, but they presented for the second time last year. And but the government had their own process. Civil society had a different process, but the civil society, they have come up with a very, very good example. I would want all of you to see how the Sri Lankan civil society have managed to create a voluntary people's review. So there's a voluntary national review, right, which is done by the government of all these countries. But when the government is not engaging, and the people's review has been absolutely stunning, they have done it so scientifically, they have done so many consultations, their data and everything is so updated that it's a very good example how the Sri Lankan civil society have come up with a voluntary people's process, and which has been highly applauded by the civil society all across the globe. So now we have Sudarsha De Silva from the civil society, from the SDG stakeholder platform from Sri Lanka. And Sudarsha, the floor is yours, and we look forward to hearing.
Hi, thank you, Jasna. I hope everyone can hear me. Thank you for inviting me. So basically, yes, Sri Lanka presented two VNRs since 2022 and 2018. And in the meantime, since there was a lack of civil society participation and inclusion, we created the stakeholder SDG platform to get the views from civil society and the academics, and we have not left out the private sector, including there are government stakeholders, even UN agencies have been participating, and individual level, the key people in the country are doing analysis on them. So last year, to tell about the voluntary people's review, we had consultations in all regions. Specifically, we had regions represented by the subnational level, where we had the provincial councils and the local governments participating for our reviews. And the feeling was that they have never been engaged in this sort of a mechanism in national level. So this was a great opportunity for them as well. And we see the lack of capacity on them to implement the SDGs. So I have a presentation. I'll go through the presentation. I think, should I share the screen? Can I share the screen, or?
I'm not sure. There are some issues, but maybe you can send me the.
Yeah, I sent it, but it's in a PDF format, but you just need to go like one by one, then I can explain. Just now, is it possible for you to open it? Shall I put it in Zoom?
Yes, that would be awesome.
Great. Okay, I put it to. So I think I uploaded the file.
Okay. I can't see. Have you uploaded here in the Zoom chat?
Yeah, I think I uploaded. I think anyway, if everyone can see the PDF, I mean, it's available. I think, yes, the PDF is there. I put it on the chat,
Yes.
right? Got it. Okay. So
I
you
can.
can share from your side. Yeah, you can share from your side because unfortunately it's a PDF. So just, right? But I'll explain. You just need to go slide by slide.
Yes.
So to tell about in 2022, we had 4 reports. We delivered 4 reports for a high-level political forum. One is the first voluntary subnational review that is coming from Sri Lanka. And then we had the second voluntary people's review for high-level political forum. And also we had the SDG 16 plus spotlight report for high-level political forum. And also we presented the localizing the transformation, the domestic resource mobilization framework also in to HLPF last year. So you can go to the next slide. So basically to talk about, I mean, when we started, we noticed like we looked at the law, politics and administrative commitment. We saw that there's no roadmap, policy strategy, monitoring and mechanism. The financing is, we have not seen that sort of a resource mobilization in Sri Lanka still. And the institutional fragmentation is a big problem in the country at the moment. And policy coherence and law integration for all the 3 dimensions of the political, social, and economy. So we have not seen this working together. Then poor localizing efforts, and this is another problem that we have highlighted in the subnational review report. Then the low awareness among state sectors and stakeholders, even the subnational level, the provincial councils and the local governments, they have no idea what is SDG is about. So that's a huge issue. Then we see that the shrinking space. So that's another problem that we see, like there has not been inclusive participation of civil society in the process. And when it comes to resilience. So basically, I mean, we have low economic, climate and political resilience. So these kind of issues that we observed when we did the voluntary people's review. You can go to the next slide. Next slide. So there, what we did was we created the platform, and since 2018, we have been doing the voluntary people's review with the transformation lab. So transformation lab, we have been looking at the knowledge, the demonstration, the co-creation and innovation. And so where we created 17 thematic review committees and research teams to review all the 169 targets. And this has been happening for the past 5 years continuously with the academics, members from organizations, and the members from the government institutions. And we had members from coming from UN agencies, and even there have been like some chief ministers who has been in the provincial level who have contributed in these working teams. So that's how we created the independent monitoring, evaluation and review mechanism from 2018 onwards. And we have done now 2 voluntary people's review for higher political forum. Yeah. Next slide, just. So basically looking at the methodology. So methodology, we had 2 sections. One is the micro assessment, where we did the 169 base targets to show the current assessment. And also we used the macro assessment, where we had 30 key aspects under 5 main areas. Like we had on one section on system change, where we were looking at the integration and mainstreaming, then political commitment, then continuous assessment, monitoring, evaluation, follow-up and review. Then we also looked at in this 30 key aspect, the leaving no one behind, especially in the subnational and also in the stakeholder level. Then a means of implementing. So under these 5 key categories, we created this the micro assessment. And we also introduced, I think this was adopted by A4SD for many countries this year, for not this year, last year, sorry. So on SDG reviews. And so basically we gave a rating method of -5 to +5. So -5 is like very critical that we have not made any such progress, and +5 is where we have shown some sort of a good achievements. So next slide, just now. So this was the assessment that we got in for voluntary people's review in 2022. So on all these SDGs, 17 SDGs, we can see what we have in the overall micro assessment. You see like several SDGs are like above 0, and some are very minus. Like when it comes to SDG 14, we are very low, and SDG 2, we have shown low progress. So this, this was a good indicative, like to show that where we are and where we are standing at the moment in Sri Lanka. And overall, the macro assessment also, we see how in the 30 key aspects, only 2 SDGs are performing well. So others are all are performing like not well. So this is how we got the analysis for high-level political forum. I think this was the first time that we introduced, and I think it was a success because we had participation more than 300 to 400 organizations who have been giving their reviews, including the key universities, the government agencies, because we verified all the information that was given here from government agencies as well. And looking at the data, I mean, there we had so much of data, not only the government data, we had data coming from independent experts, and we verified them. So that's how we created this report. Next slide. Yeah. Okay, no,
I can't see a next slide.
Yeah, that's okay. That's this slide. So thank you. So this is the Sri Lankan experience to share. I mean, this was a good, I think, kind of a share. We are very happy to share this as a best practices to other countries as well. So maybe if anybody is interested, we can see any support on do this in their countries as well. And we are still, now we are getting ready for the 2023 as well, and we are going to continue on that. So we are hoping to create further engagement on national level, especially on several, like we are looking at like creating a mechanism for financing with the key government agencies to come up for the next national budget. So those are the key. Yes. Thanks, Jasna.
तुम कहाँ हो? अरे ठीक है, ठीक है.
Yeah, Jasna, so you can take it forward. Yeah. Jasna? Hello.
Yes, Darsha, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you would want to share your experiences? This is about voluntary people review, but is there something, you know, the engagement process with the government, or how the government has, because this was last time was your second time. So did you see any change in, you know, the whole process of engaging with the government? Because anything that you would want to share with the civil society here, some of them are presenting VNR. So
Yes.
your experience you would want to share? Any suggestion also?
Well, I think if we are looking at, I mean, like now it's already 7 years gone, but we had to basically, thing is we need to see how we can implement SDGs in subnational level. So I mean, this was a weak point. I mean, even we have Sri Lanka has very rarely touched upon, because we are still looking at, like, I mean, when we go to the subnational level, all the government officials in the subnational level saying there's no any means of implementation. There's no mechanism for mainstream. So there's no mechanism of how to engage them. I mean, so maybe when people are doing the VNR, maybe other countries can see how in the subnational level, whether they can get, how they can involve and implement SDGs in their own level, because I think we are still lagging behind in Sri Lanka. Maybe this is something that we can try. And anyway, I think the platform is an independent platform for everyone, because it's not owned by one person. So we have a lot of people coming from all the different entities. So I mean, if maybe the other countries also can make a platform, getting a government to everyone together, and like few people like key as a steering committee or someone like taking it further, like talking with everyone and making the key decisions. So maybe this sort of a mechanism will support their countries as well when it comes to reporting.
Okay, so Darsha, so I think these are very interesting thing to know because you know, Sri Lanka, I mean, you are the only country which has pioneered in the whole Quality People Review. But as you heard from him, there are 400 organization institutions which were part of the whole process.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very comprehensive process that you have taken up. But
yeah, I think there's a question for me from current economic condition of Sri Lanka in the chat. Yeah, that's true, Sheris. Like, I mean, we have shown the government like how we can, how SDGs can overcome this economic crisis and move forward. But unfortunately, I think we have proposed, but the people needs to I mean, they need to do the implementation, because we can only propose. So the proposals, we have shown how SDGs can be used to come up with to come out from this economic crisis, even because we also propose this domestic resource mobilization framework where we have shared it to the highest level in the country. So if they can focus on them and implement, then I'm sure we can come out from the economic condition very soon. Yeah. Yes, Jasna. Yeah.
yeah, so that was question from Sehrish. Any
Yeah.
other question would you want to ask Sudarsha? Because I believe that you know, you can learn from Sri Lankan case, and you can actually ask if you have anything, what kind of support they have got, and any idea on the funding opportunities. Sudarsha, how did you manage the funds? Some
So
of
basically, I think in the platform, when we made a call that we are doing the report, I think there were few organizations like special thanks to A4SD, Action for Sustainable Development, and also I think the TAP network. So they have supported internationally to do this research and analysis. And other than that, I think when we called out for everyone, there were organizations who came forward, including CSOs and government organizations. In subnational level, they said they will organize the consultations in their own regions on behalf, because we said, I mean, it's a voluntary process and we don't have that much of resources to go to the regions and do the work. So that was a good engagement, because this they have shown a keen interest on SDGs and they wanted to do something. So that's why they invited us. And so that is one of the way that that's why we say we have kept this platform a voluntary platform, because it's a platform to own for everyone. So basically, if anybody can do anything, anything they like, I mean, they can suggest we can do this. And so that's how we did all the regions, because it was totally to the contributions made by the organizations in the platform who said, okay, we'll take this area and this. So that was a key achievement in this process for us.
Thank you so much. I think this is very helpful because some of the countries which are present in VNR this year, we will try to again get you in touch with the A4SD and the TAP network. They also provide some funding, not much funding, but then you can at least get engaged in the process. That's very important. I also wanted to hear some of the countries which are presenting. I know we have Semjidma from Mongolia. Do we have anyone from Timor? If you want to share experience, because Mongolia is also presenting this year. Semjidma, do you wanted to share something?
I just, I involved in people's score as for STG, and you know that we had a issue with the government people because they ignored us. For example, I lead the health sector, health part, the SDG 3. So the people who involved in our national discussion wasn't agreed with our score. So, you know that with the assistance of UNDP, we did again, national discussion on the scoring. So that's I think that for today we have, just two national discussion or review on SDGs, and we will prepare our independent or submission, NGO submission for that. But Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Economy and Development initiated launched the meeting of preparing the second Venera. I invited us, and I don't know what is progressing now. Maybe Orna know about Bell, but we did 2 times of the national discussion involved, and I led the health sector part. That's what I know for today now.
Thank you so much, Samjidma. Urna, I know it's your lunar year, and which is that's the reason Urna could not join us. But thank you for updating us about the Mongolian case, and we would want to know more about how the progress is going to be, and how can we be of any support and help. We will also talk to some of the international donors who can, put some funds in place for to support the civil society organizations in all the VNR countries of 2023. So if you have any other question or concerns about these presentations, please raise your hand, or if you have any other question, even without any presentation about the VNR process. So please let me know.
All the countries did the exercise of the A4ST exercise. All the Venera countries, or
No,
some of them.
A4ST is the civil society led exercise, Samjidma. So many countries, because they have funding for the VNR countries, so usually they take to go to ask the civil society organizations to the countries which are presenting VNR to do the scorecard. Scorecard is a very important, it's a very good process actually to see how have you been actually, how the SDGs have progressed over the years. So I think these are very good. You saw something from the Nizam's presentation, which had the SDG index, which is the government thing, which shows which SDGs is going up, which is which is not progressing, and how the SDGs are going down. So scorecard also tells you the similar perspective, but from the people's point of view. How is the condition of, how is the health, the status of implementation of health, for example, in your country. So it's basically people, they provide the scorecard. So it's up to the civil society of any country if they want to do the scorecard process. Sri Lanka has done it. Many countries have done it. Actually, Cambodia has done it. Vietnam has done it. Many countries that I know, they have done the scorecard process. So definitely, if you are interested in doing the scorecard, people's scorecard, that is very much like people's VNR, or the voluntary people's review that they did in Sri Lanka. So I think that's a very important process. Apart from that, there are various views of looking at the VNR process. For example, TAP network that works on SDG 16 and 16 plus. So you saw in Sri Lankan presentation, there was a presentation, they had a whole civil society report on SDG, this status of SDG 16 in Sri Lanka. So because that is also important, because SDG 16 or any SDGs, they're all interlinked. So when you are doing such reporting from the civil society perspective, that becomes a very good report, a kind of comprehensive and scientific report. You also get some sort of funding for that. But you can, even without funding, you can do some sort of report. So just if you have any interest, even if you're not presenting VNR this year, if you're presenting next year, or you don't know when the country presenting, still if you need to do some sort of reporting, then please let me know. I know Pakistan also did the scorecard. They've been very involved in the people's scorecard. So many countries actually, they have taken the scorecard method, Samjidma. Yeah. Okay,
Thank you, Jasna.
welcome. So, yes. Anyone else who would want to share their experiences before I share a presentation from yesterday, which we could not have the presentation because we had finished our workshop a little early. So if you have no question, maybe we will proceed to that presentation. Okay, so I don't see any hand raise.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. Just wanted to maybe learn a little bit more about this scorecard process, because we have been encouraged to join this workshop, obviously, to learn more about the VNR process, because we really, just to clarify, I represent a coalition that works, a coalition of education civil society organizations that work in Cambodia. And we wanted to participate a little bit more actively in the VNR process this year. But in Cambodia, education SDG number 4 is not the priority SDG. There are 5 priority SDGs that are going to be featured, and education is not one of them. Would you suggest any other way for us to engage with the process? Because obviously in nationally, we have CCC that lead the process, and they are the ministry appointed network to facilitate the data collection from civil society. But outside of the one workshop we had with CCC, we haven't really had a chance to engage. And like I said, it is probably explained by the fact that education is not the priority goal that's being spotlighted. So yeah, we still would like to join, but are there any other opportunities for us to engage?
So thank you so much for your question. I think it's a very important question. So first of all, I would like to clarify that it's not your country which has not specified. It's basically this year, the in-depth review is being carried out for SDG 6. I have just mentioned the chat box, which I mentioned even yesterday. So SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation, 7, affordable and clean energy, 9, which is industry, innovation and infrastructure, and 11 is sustainable cities and communities, and 17, which is partnership for all the goals. So basically, these are the SDGs which are going to be reviewed under this. The problem is here that the VNR, nowhere it mentions that you have to only review the thematic goals or the goals, the themes which are being reviewed this year. VNR are supposed to actually encompass all the goals. So it's as we mentioned yesterday, VNR is a voluntary process, voluntary national review. So it's a prerogative of the government if they want to just review these 6 goals which are being reviewed this year by the ECOSOC high-level political forum, or beyond that. Many countries, they try to do all the goals, and they look at or some of the important goals that the country think that is very important for them. So maybe for that point of view, the government of Cambodia they don't think that the SDGs 4 important. So in that case, if you think that SDGs 4 is not involved, I would first suggest you to first get in touch with CCC also, because I believe you're a member of CCC. Sin Pothiari also, she made a presentation yesterday. You can get in touch with her and ask if they have been solicited if the government of Cambodia has reached out to them to ask for their inputs in the whole VNR process? First thing. Second
Yes,
thing,
no, sorry, they have, and CCC has organized a workshop.
Mhm.
And what government has announced is that they're reviewing all goals. So all input is welcome, but they will feature in the report the 5 goals that are being spotlighted.
Okay.
Us being an education coalition, we have had prepared before, ahead of time, a spotlight report on SDG4. And we shared that report with CCC. My question is this the only contribution we can make to this VNR process? Did we exhaust all possibilities, or is there something else we can try?
No. I don't think you have. I mean, there are many other possibilities. First thing that, I mean, I see that the government, they say that they are open to get inputs on all the goals, but the government will only feature these 6 goals. That's you actually, you cannot do anything about it, but then you can have consultation with the government. You can through CCC, or you can just have your consultations and show your concern, and maybe show your input, give your inputs to them. But there are high chances that they will not incorporate them, because in many cases what happens that the government asks for many inputs, but it's actually is their prerogative what all they want to feature in the formal VNR process. Usually they want to look at the good case studies, which we have seen in many other countries. They do not like to see the challenges or anything. So in that case, I would suggest that if you want to write a civil society report on SDG 4, which is about education, please do that. I believe that it's a very important time. It's a good opportunity for all of you to feature, to say that, to showcase what the civil society has been doing on education, what are the concerns that you really wanted to put forward. There's an education thematic group also in the APRSM. You can get involved in that. I can put you in touch with them, and you can actually write the whole thematic on education. SBA, I'm sure you know about them. So, and there are many other groups that are involved in that, and so you can write your view from Cambodia. The second opportunity is that we write from ADA, we write for the APRSM, we write the Asia Pacific VNR report every year, and we are also writing this year. So I would ask you, or you can write to me. I'm sharing my email ID. You can write to me the concerns that you want to show, so we can feature also there on our Asia Pacific report. This report also features on the UNESCAP SDG help desk. Which is accessed by the member states and other states. So I think that's another thing that you want to, you can put there. So the third thing would be when someone is presenting the civil society statement from Cambodia, which will be happening for sure because your country is presenting VNR. So even in the civil society statement, you can get your inputs that you wanted your state government or your country to listen to. You can put in the VNR, in the civil society statement. So your government is definitely going to hear this when they are in Bangkok later this March and later in July. So I think these are some of the opportunities where you can
Right.
actually get involved and you can write your concerns.
Thank you. Yeah, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I am just writing my email ID. Anyone, if you have any question, concerns, you can write to me and I will try to help you out.
Thank you.
Welcome. So Sarish writes Education Summit also. Yeah, of course, you can do the side event, but the side events are, we have, the dates are over. So, but we are organizing a VNR side event later during the APFST. So please feel free to get in touch with me, and we'll be happy to feature. Or if you have anything that you want to show, that you want to showcase during the Asia Pacific Forum, we'll be very happy to feature them all. This is the advice to everyone, not only my colleague from Cambodia, but anyone who want to your work or featured, just let me know. We can feature in the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, and we'll try to provide them maximum outreach. So thank you for that. And with this, we will just move to the presentation which was due yesterday, and hope that will also help you to understand the global process of the VNR.
So hi everyone.
I'm not sure if you can have a look at it, but let me try to share. Okay, I think I cannot find it, but so can you see my screen?
Yes, yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
this was the presentation by Graham Long from the Newcastle University, and he was supposed to join us yesterday, but it got a little delayed. So he has shared his presentation, and so he was trying to present the global view, because they work a lot on VNR process at the global level, and some of the expectations from the VNR was reflecting guiding principle for review at all the levels. As we discussed yesterday, we discussed para 74, para 73. They're the guiding principle. VNR should be open, inclusive, participatory, and transparent. They also should reflect a universal integrated agenda, comprehensive across goals and targets. They should reflect on achievements, challenges, and gap, because we see in most of the VNR that basically they look at they only try to showcase the achievements that they have done, and they use this opportunity to showcase their opportunities. But it's not only opportunities and the achievements, but also the challenges and gaps that they have faced. Because once it's accepted that we will not be able to achieve the SDGs until 2030, then definitely there are lots of challenges, and that needs to be addressed so that it can be consulted widely. And VNR should also focus on left behind, as we know, and in the principle of leave no one behind. So they should focus on those who are left behind, should respect the human right concern, draw on the rigorous and disaggregated data. So basically all these principles, they're reflected in the detailed UN guidance and the UN handbook. Yesterday I shared the handbook with you. If you want, I will share in all the resource when I'm sharing with you all later. So that will also help you understand the whole VNR process. The one of the important features of the report format of the VNR is the commonality. So basically, the United Nations, that they have skeleton for the report that we discussed yesterday. They vary widely. They reflected in country practices. Some section heading and key term universally present in 2022. An account of the methodology for the preparing the report. Usually, claims and methods has been participatory and inclusive. Then the country practice, they vary on how to organize the goal by goal coverage. As our colleague from Cambodia, she asked, and the answer is also here that, it's up to the country if they want to cover the entire 1 to 17 goal, usually 1 to 17 or the 5 Ps. Can someone tell me what are the 5 Ps?
Peace, planet, prosperity. This is the 5 Ps.
Yeah, just 3, Serish.
Partnership.
But 5 Ps
Two
people.
more.
4 is the people.
And the
People,
5th one,
peace, and planet
you have said. The 5th is the partnership.
partnership. Yeah.
These are the 5 Ps. So basically 1 to 17, it's up to them. If they want to cover it by 1 to 17 or they want to do by 5 Ps, depends on the national priorities and and how the data led versus policy led, because there are lots of issues between data and the policies, because as we know, most of the countries have hardly 40 to 45% of the data. On the basis of that, they are presenting the report. And then there are some policy issues, the issues of policy coherence, if the policy coherence at the national level or at the global level. So there are lots of issues between, there is a issues of targets and indicators, because even till now there are many indicators which are not for them, the data is not available. So basically 40 to 45% is data available for all the indicators. You can imagine most of the indicators are just not even been touched. Some of the gender section in the VNR, which is leave no one behind. So basically, which are the groups which are left behind in the whole process? I think that is which is missing. I think it's very important. Especially the people like the disadvantaged people, like indigenous group, women, LGBTI group. There are many such groups. Children. There are many such groups which are left behind. So how do we, or many underprivileged groups, so how they have been has their issues been taken into account? So for example, it also means, apart from the groups, it also means the issues. For example, our colleague from Cambodia was saying that the education, the government of Sri Lanka, Cambodia, they do not think this is very important, so they are not featuring it, although they have asked for all the inputs. So I think it's very important for us to ensure, and also to tell our government that you don't think it's important, but we think it's important, so how can we feature it? So I think that's also our responsibility. Does the inclusion extend beyond social protection and anti-discrimination and political participation? I think it's very important, because we have when we talk about the government, the national government, they have their own limitation. So it has to move beyond any political participation. I may be follower of your government or may not be, but when it comes to the whole planning and implementation, I have to be included in that group. So I think there's not supposed to be any sort of discrimination, and it has to be beyond any social protection measures. So I think these are the important key features when the government is they're doing the VNR process. So in this, and second important thing is integration. Is this superficial with SDGs mapped against existing government initiative? So we have to really think about it. So when SDGs are being mapped, what happens? The government, they have their own initiative, they have their own way of featuring it. For example, when the government of India were featuring, they felt that because there are many departments in the India, they feel that we do not need to have a SDGs department, but we have the Niti Aayog. So many governments actually, they have this kind of already an institution in place. Some government, they have made the SDGs department. For example, I know in Sri Lanka, they had the SDGs department, which was highly criticized by the civil society organization. So I think this also has to be very, very inclusive, and beyond a government initiative or beyond their own interest, this has to be for the people's interest. Then other thing has to be, what are the critical point of relevance in the SDGs for each country, and how are these present or absent? So the critical points, maybe the government think that the 6 or 7 goals which are reviewed every year, but the civil society or the people, the larger people, might think that there are issues beyond this. I mean, as we heard yesterday, that forget the issues, there are goal number 18 for the mining, for the land and mining in Cambodia and Laos, because they felt that it's very important, which has not been featured in any of the SDGs. So they came up with the goal number 18. Similarly, in that way, if you feel that the government is not giving that kind of importance, and they are not featuring your concern, then it's again, we have to push hard to get it featured. And if they do not, then definitely we have other ways, which I mentioned, that we can do the civil society statement, we can do civil society report, we can feature it on the UNSCAP. And although we have been trying to really work hard at the global level, because despite all those, whatever UN is doing, they have also, I won't say limitation, but it's again their will, is their political will or unwillingness to not feature the civil society report on the UN DESA website, because when they have the mention of UN major groups, but there is no mention of the UN of the civil society reporting. They have they have all the country VNR formally on their website, but no provision of the civil society reporting. We are very happy, and because the UNSCAP, they have the SDG help desk, and on that help desk in Asia and Pacific, if you have any report that you think that your government is not giving any importance and you really want to be want it to be featured, you want a greater outreach, please reach out to the SDGs help desk of the UNSCAP and it will be featured there. You can ask, you can get in touch with me. I can tell you, who all to be contacted, and you can, feature your SDG report. So there are many other ways when your report is not being featured in the VNR process. How can you, make sure that, still your report is published and it has a wider outreach and which is also heard and read by the government, right? And also integration of ambiguous between the integration of SDGs into policies, integration of environment, social, economic aspects of SDGs. They are very important because environment, social, and economic aspect. When we are doing the VNR, these three part, I mean, all the SDGs are actually combination of environment, social, and economic aspects of SDGs. If you want to know more about it, we will do another consultation on how which SDGs goal feature what, but we are just concentrating here on the VNR. And the institutional and policy context is very important. How much has it changed in response to the SDGs? Government innovations and element of indicator 1714.1, which participatory process, cross-government coordination mechanism, PCSD monitoring, SD scrutiny. What is PCSD? Someone can tell me? Except Shudha, because she knows. Anybody else? Okay, so Shudha, are you here? Okay, I don't think she's joined here, but she was here for some time. So PCSD is called Policy Coherence in Sustainable Development. PCSD is a very important concept which shows that what are the promises that were made at the when your government was signing the Agenda 2030 of SDGs in 2015. They signed certain commitments, right? So how these commitments are translated at the national level? Not only translated, when they are for example, you have committed, the country is committed for the for the afforestation, and but for example, it might be in conflict with the country's own policy at the national level. That means I have committed something at the global level with the UN, but when I come back to my country, my policies, that my commitments may be incoherent with the policies of my own country. So if there are incoherence, forget. I mean, so that's the main challenge. So that's why we are talking about policy coherence. There has to be a complete coherence with the policies at the global level and the regional and the national level is very important. So we have to take into account then the cross-government coordination, because when we see that the governments, they have the their way of doing, they work in silos, but the cross-government, the cross-institution, I think is very important to interlink various governments when they are working on SDGs implementation. I think the partnership is there's a key element. The 17 goal 17 of 14 and 1, 17, 14, 1. I mean, that's a indicator. One is an indicator that says that exactly talks about the whole participatory process. So there has to be various coherence in the policy, coherence among the state coordination committees, departments, and also the participation of various stakeholders. So it is basically the mix of all these things that the government has to ensure before executing the SDGs implementation and also writing the voluntary national process. And some of the challenges that we always see reported, which has been accepted by the state governments, are also the issue of data. Because what we have seen that the data is indeed a major problem. Most of the governments have already recognized the loss of or the lack of disaggregated data. So I think that's a very important aspect. Then the means of implementation, that is coverage or not of the multi-stakeholder partnership, which means civil society, monitoring, awareness. These are some of the areas that one needs to be taken care of. And the next step, either by the goal or overall, what are the ambition? Because these are the challenges and the ensuring all the participation. But what is going to be the next step? Unlike the UPR, which is the Universal Periodic Review, which is a very good way of actually reviewing if the state government presented, if the member state presented something, for example, in 2023, and then when they go for the next cycle, maybe after 3 years, after 2 years, then they actually start from where they ended. So they know that, there is no gap. But in the VNR, there is no such provision. As we keep saying, that is called voluntary process. So voluntary means it's up to the state government what they want. So there is no sort of continuity. So that continuity has to be maintained. Otherwise, the gap is created. So that's why when we say that the country, for example, Sri Lanka, which are presenting VNR first time in 2017 and the second time when they presented in 2022, there was no such correlation because a new department was formed and everything was haywire. So I think it's very important for the civil society actually to maintain that type of coherence, so that we do not go into that sort of gap. Even the voluntary national review are the voluntary process, but when they are reporting to the government, they also have to ensure that no such gap is created. So some of the example of the some budgeting on SDGs, Argentina, they have done but because we heard even in the morning, the budgeting, the funding is very important part of SDGs. Argentina, they have come up with a very good budgeting in the government of Argentina. The sub-national data collection, Philippines has a whole statistical department and they have done a great job on sub-national data collection. Then Italy, they have the sustainable development impact assessment mechanism, apart from the Luxembourg, Netherlands. Then that's about Netherlands. Policy coherence in National Action Plan, Italy has done it. When we're talking about the PCSD, policy coherence, I think they have, that's a good example of Italy. Incorporation of critical civil society perspective in G17, we have seen that Argentina, Latvia, and by goal is, these are the countries which are, they have kind of incorporated the critical aspect of the VNR, but unfortunately, there are just 2 or 3, 4 countries who have actually incorporated the civil society perspective. So that now that what we are discussing, that many perspective many inputs are taken from the governments, but it's up to them what they want to feature. But I remember, apart from that, even Indonesia government, first time when they're presenting, they have incorporated some of the inputs from the civil society. And the interlinkages by type, Switzerland, by target, by target Greece. These 2 countries, they have tried to look at the interlinkages of the SDGs, by type and by targets. They have kind of tried. So we have some good practices, but we also have some good practices even within Asia and Pacific. Since this was a global presentation from Asia Pacific, I can say that Malaysia, we have some example in Nepal, which is doing great work on localizing of SDGs. Although Timor is a very new democracy, but Timor-Leste also they have come up with some of those, they have kind of tried to incorporate the inputs of the civil society, but unfortunately, they did not give any space for the civil society when they were visiting New York. There was no civil society delegate. Apart from that, the VNR has politics critical theme. So VNR are moments for civil society to stress your contribution to realizing the SDGs. Basically, so as we say that it's a over all the year round process, but civil society, they get involved when their country is presenting VNR. But apart from that, I know South Korean case where they present their national SDGs implementation every year. Which is a civil society, which is a very good report actually by the South Korean civil society. So you don't need actually to wait for your country to present VNR. You can still, contribute, represent vulnerable and marginalized groups and their interests. So you can actually ensure that we have good representation of marginalized groups and the vulnerable groups, and then regulate government action as watchdogs. The civil society, they do it and look at the accountability process, which is very limited because, as we know, we have seen that no government actually likes this to be, especially to be, to be monitored. No government like it. When we are asking for the accountability, they do not like this kind of hard questions. There are many government, actually, we have seen in the high-level political forum in New York, that they don't even like to be questioned. they say that, if you have any question, you can ask us in our own country, you can ask us in our one-to-one process. So basically, you also have to look at the ways, how can you ensure that, your government is listening to you. Only a subsection of the VNR addresses challenges seriously. So basically, civil society can highlight these data, the most important identified problem, because data is been identified as the problem by both the government and the civil society. So as we have seen, there are very little scope for other countries, the civil society actually to highlight the VNR process, the challenges, and the civil society can also help immensely on understanding of the key terms in and how to raise the ambition. But what are the key ambition that the civil society think that it can be reached by the government? They can also raise those issues and windows for all these roles during preparation at the UN and the regional event, national parliaments before and after. So these are some of those issues that is very important, because once the VNR are presented, it gets very important to be reviewed, because when your country is presenting the VNR, suppose they will be going to the Bangkok in March, so they should be able to consult the civil society. And before going to high-level political forum, before July, government should present the VNR not only in front before the national parliament, but also kind of through the stakeholder consultation, so that everybody knows what is going to be presented in New York. And when they come back from New York, they should again present the VNR. So what was how they presented, what was the input? These are some of the very important aspects of the whole monitoring and review process. So I think as a civil society, that becomes your key aspect. How can you ensure that these aspects are fulfilled and these aspects are addressed, right? So I wanted to highlight all these issues for the VNR, which will further help you. And if you have any question or concern, you can raise hand. If not, then we'll go for our last presentation from Deirdre. Thank you, Deirdre, for, I know it's very early for you, 6 a.m. I'm so sorry. In the morning, I think before 6 a.m. So Deirdre, if you are ready, or if you want some time, Deirdre is the advocacy manager in the Forest, and Forest is the civil society platform at the global level. ADA is the we are the regional member of Forest. And so I would request Deirdre to make a presentation. Deirdre, if you're ready.
Hi, Josna. Hello, everybody. Very happy to be here today. And as Josna said, it's very early where I am. I'm based in Ireland, but I'm very happy to be part of this webinar today. So Josna, if you wouldn't mind displaying my slides, I can start to make my presentation. And I know this webinar today is about the VNR process, and I'm going to speak specifically about the VNRs and civic space, because Forest does a lot of work on civic space, and we're interested in looking every year at what the VNRs say about civic space in different countries around the world. We believe that given the deterioration in civic space in many countries across the world, there's a real need for the voluntary national reviews to focus on this area and to outline what governments are doing to try to improve civic space. But as you will see from my presentation today, the picture is not so encouraging at the moment. So as we know, the level of openness of civic space, so in other words, the public space in any country, is a key determinant of the degree to which civil society and non-state actors in general are able to voice their views in the public sphere. And in practice, this determines the extent to which civil society and other actors can exert influence within policy-making processes and political processes in general. So this is influencing programs, policies, laws, procedures, budgets, political party platforms. And in the context of sustainable development, civic space means the right to actively participate in development processes and to exercise influence over their outcomes. And unfortunately, as political authoritarianism, illiberalism, and the weakening of democracy become more evident in countries across the world, there are growing trends towards the shrinkage and the closure of civic space in many countries. Next slide, please, Josna. So Forrest was involved in a report recently, where a coalition of CSOs came together, and we do this every year, and we analyze the VNRs from the year before that. So we have a look at the VNRs that have been presented to the UN High-Level Political Forum, and we see what do the VNRs say about civic space. So the 2022 VNR reports that were presented to the UN's High-Level Political Forum by governments around the world continue to be largely silent on issues of shrinking civic space globally and on the ongoing attacks on human rights defenders and environmentalists. There has been, from our analysis of the 2022 VNRs, a slight increase in the number of countries that actually address developments linked to civic space at the national level. So this means that 12 of the VNR reports presented in 2022 included insights into the state of national civic spaces. And this was done mainly by describing constitutional, regulatory, or policy-based reforms that have been adopted in order to enhance freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of association, access to information, as well as general levels of democratic participation. Next slide, please, Josna. Next slide, please, Josna, if you can change it. Thank you. So the key findings showed, unfortunately, that although the official VNRs presented seemed to suggest that there were improvements in civic space taking place, in contrast, several civil society shadow or parallel reports produced in 2022 highlighted how shrinking civic space remains a serious problem in their national contexts. So these CSO shadow or parallel reports that are prepared by civil society, alongside the VNR process, but they're separate, they're civil society led and written, these reports, they provide information on government actions that actually hinder freedom of expression, assembly, association, and access to information, which in some cases actually contradicts the information contained in the official VNRs. So it is a matter of serious concern that much of the information linked to the increasing trend of shrinking civic space, and that's shared by civil society parallel and shadow reports, is being ignored or only partially dealt with by official VNR reports. Next slide, please, Josna. So what were the key recommendations of our report? And I think they're worth sharing here today when we're discussing the VNRs. So the first recommendations are aimed at the international community, and they call on the international community to firstly agree on the annual review of SDG 16 by the High-Level Political Forum. So that means that the High-Level Political Forum would review SDG 16, which deals with human rights, civic space, civic participation, and governance generally, that it would be reviewed every year by the High-Level Political Forum instead of every couple of years, as happens at the moment. And we believe this would bring a lot more political attention to the issue of civic space and to the reporting by governments to each other at the High-Level Political Forum about what actions they're taking to improve and to strengthen civic space. The second recommendation for the international community was that it should adopt a wider range of civic space indicators linked to SDG 16 implementation. So as we know, every goal has indicators associated or corresponding with it. And for SDG 16, there's only one civic space indicator that corresponds to what's called SDG 1610, and that's what deals with fundamental freedoms. So in SDG 16, governments commit to protect fundamental freedoms. But there's only one civic space indicator linked to this, and it's not enough. We need a wider range of civic space indicators that particularly look at processes and also what are called structural indicators, what governments are doing and providing to help the creation of civic space. So we want to see more civic space indicators. We also called for the establishment of a new global civic space observatory to monitor civic space trends in different parts of the world. And we think that's essential so we can look at what's happening around the world and compare countries to each other. We're also calling for flexible funding to be provided to support CSOs who are operating in contexts of closed or closing civic space. And again, that's very important. We're calling also for capacity development for organised civil society everywhere to be resourced. We believe this is really important to help to strengthen civil society to push back against the kind of restrictions that it is experiencing. And finally, we're calling for assessments of civic space to be included in investor risk assessment approaches. And we believe that this would mean that where investors are thinking about investing in particular countries, they would have to assess civic space along with other factors when they're doing their risk assessment. And again, if there's signs that civic space is very closed or restricted, that should be something that should cause investors to think twice and maybe to be much slower to invest in that particular country. And we think that would provide an incentive to governments to really act on improving civic space. Next slide, please, Jasna. Thanks. So the last slide here is the recommendations that we directed at national government. So the first thing we said is that national governments should establish an enabling environment for organised civil society through creating appropriate legal, regulatory and policy frameworks which support non-state actors to contribute to sustainable development. So that's a big priority that governments should be focusing on. We also have called on national governments to ensure open, regular and structured dialogue with civil society at the national level. And there's many countries where that is not happening. So it's, again, a very important priority. We've also called on governments to report on national civic space trends in the VNRs that they submit to the UN high-level political forum process. So again, our report has shown that governments largely are not reporting on civic space, and we believe that this should be something that every government should report on, what the civic space trends in their country are like. Are they deteriorating? Are they improving? And what the governments are doing to try to address the situation. We've also called on governments to support civil society reports being given recognition and status in the UN high-level political forum process. And this is because even though very high quality civil society shadow and parallel reports are now being produced by coalitions of civil society across different countries, these reports, even though they contain very useful and valuable information, they're not being given any recognition or status at the high-level political forum every year. So we're calling for governments to support these civil society reports being given greater recognition. We've also called on governments to engage in peer exchange with other governments so that they can share good practice on civic space issues. We know some governments are doing their best, are trying to open and to strengthen civic space, but we believe that governments should be engaging in peer exchange around this so they learn from each other and can share good practice. And finally, we've called on governments to be able to access specific international funding linked to SDG 16+ to support the implementation of key actions linked to civic space in their countries. So we're saying that at an international level, funding should be provided, by the international community to support individual governments to actually be able to improve civic space. This would be an incentive to governments to provide them with funding to support the actions they're taking to strengthen and improve civic space at the national level. So that's really it for my presentation today. Just now, I'd be happy to take any questions if anybody has one, and back to you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Deirdre. I think you raised very important points because civic space and about SDG 16 and 16+, because that's something we have been really struggling in our region. And you rightly said, and you have been saying, and that no VNR actually has mentioned the issue of civic space, or they don't even want to mention this. So except very few of them, they talk about the challenges of the civil society, or they take some of their perspective. So I think it's very important. And Goal 1610 that, and we know that SDG 16 is not progressing, rather regressing in most of the countries. So I think it's very important for the governments to actually look at the VNR from that perspective. And the suggestion on reviewing annual review of SDG 16. Thank you for that. I know you have been advocating at the global level for that, to review the Goal 16 apart from 17, which is reviewed every year. So we also consider Goal 16 as means of implementation. 1 to 15 as a goals, and 16 and 17 both should be considered as means of implementation, not only 17. So I think these are some of the very important points that you raised. Thank you. So if you have any question or concern about from Deirdre's presentation, please feel free to ask. Or else I will share the presentation with all of you very soon after we complete this workshop. So I really wanted to thank Deirdre a lot, because I know in your early morning you took the pain to come and present and share your views. And especially from this shrinking civic space perspective, I think it's very important. And for all those countries which are presenting VNR, we have all the countries from Asia Pacific. We have Cambodia, Vietnam, we have Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and then we have Timor-Leste, Mongolia, then we have Maldives. All these countries which are presenting VNR this year. I think this is going to be very important for the other countries which will be presenting next year. I think these will be your suggestions, and how you can get engaged in the whole VNR process. This will further help you. So with this, I really thank you, Deirdre, for coming over and joining us, and your presentation. Thank you so much. And now back to you all. If you have any question or suggestion, or anything that you wanted to ask before we close the event now? Okay, we have a question from Enam. Yes, Enam, please. Yeah.
First of all, I would like to thank for the last presenter. It was really powerful presentation, although it was very early for the presenter. So I'd like to emphasize that the VNR process at the country level needs to be strengthened, and it linked with the HLPF. We have observed the civil society space is shrinking at the country level, and it is not widening at the global level as well. For example, during the HLPF, if a government participant cannot connect immediate after the call, they are calling for twice, thrice, or sometimes more than that. But if a civil society representative misses the call in few seconds, they often don't call again. They miss the opportunity. So it is a kind of symbol that at country level, civil society is facing difficulties, and at the global level, they also face difficulties in raising voice. And particularly when some of the LDCs are eligible for graduating from LDCs, they are thinking that they have done enough, so we don't need civil society, government is enough. So how to improve that situation? I think this is one of the important forum for us to discuss on those issues. Thank you.
Great. Would you like me to respond to that just now?
No, Deirdre, I would want you to respond.
Great. Okay, perfect. So thank you very much to the speaker there who made that point. And I totally agree with him. I think, you know, we cannot be complacent. We cannot sit back and sort of accept the way the kind of civic space that we're experiencing at national and international level at the moment. And very often, you know, most civil society organizations operating at the national level are aware of how restricted their environments, their operating environments can be, but they sometimes get a shock when they go to the international level, where they'd expect maybe that things would be, you know, more positive in terms of civil society engagement. and they realize that, you know, they don't have the same opportunities. You know, you use the example there of the high-level political forum. So there's lots of ways in which civil society participation and civil society voice could be strengthened to a much greater level during the high-level political forum. And I used the civil society reports as an example, that they don't have any status, even though a lot of work has gone into them and they contain very valuable information. They're not, you know, uploaded onto the UN website. They're not publicly available to anybody. So if I wanted to find out, for example, you know, what civic space was like, or what civil society had to say about SDG implementation in Sri Lanka or in Thailand, or I can't, you know, I'd have to really go and search for that. It's not available on the UN website, and it's not, you know, any formal part of the HLPF review processes. So we have to change that. We have to push very hard. So for us as a global network, we do a lot of our advocacy at the international level, and we are part of, you know, quite a few campaigns. One of them is called the Unmute Civil Society campaign, and I know that Justna has been part of that with us before, but it's pushing for much stronger civil society voice and representation, you know, at many levels, at the global, the international level, at the regional level, and at the national level. So we all have to push together. I think SDG 16 is a really important goal to open doors for us and to ensure that, you know, what are described as the fundamental freedoms, that's the freedom of expression, association and assembly, and also access to information, that these rights are protected and promoted, you know, at national level, but at regional and international level as well. So all I can say is we have to be very active on this. Forus has prioritized civic space and an enabling environment for civil society at all levels, and we will support civil society organizations like ADA and its members to make sure that we do become a civil society globally a force to be reckoned with, and that we are listened to and do participate on an equal basis with other stakeholder groups at all these levels. So I hope that's helpful. Back to you, Justna.
Thank you so much, Deirdre. I think Enam, your questions were addressed. Your question because, and thank you Forrest, and thank you Deirdre, because you have been really helpful, very supportive of ADA and other national platform, and who we also recommend, you know, because as we know this year, some of the countries, you know, Deirdre, like Timor-Leste or Maldives, they are small island countries, but they're presenting VNR also for the second time. Unfortunately, they were not very involved in first time because many of them could not understand how the process was going. I think capacity building is another important thing that I would really want for us and you to think of, and how can we, you know, do some of the capacity building for the civil society organizations in our region. We would be very grateful. And I know that, you know, apart from SDG 16, because, you know, that's kind of, it's called the accelerator of all the goals. So thank you for all the work that Forest is doing, and we are also kind of contributing from our region, taking members' perspectives. So, and how do we ensure that our concerns are featured in the VNR process? If not, then there are other ways of how can we ensure that there are various ideas we can make serious statement in APA Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development or high-level political forum. How can we get featured on the civil society SDGs website, on SDG help desk of UNESCAP? Unfortunately, there is nothing on at the global level, but then the various civil society reports, and Forest also comes up with you also do a lot of work on voluntary national review, also on shrinking civil space. So there are various opportunities. I wanted to ensure you all that you can present, you know, you can present your concerns. If you have anything, please get back to us, and we'll ensure that, you know, our concerns are addressed. So there were under just one thing I saw from Sehrish. So asking about the role of women, or how there are the spaces for women are also closing, Deirdre. So would you want to say something about that before we just close it?
Sure, of course. Yeah, I mean, I think we need to do more research on civic space, because to date, most of the civic space analysis that we have done just looks at, you know, the impact on civil society organizations generally, but we haven't done any sort of disaggregated analysis to look at, well, is there a particularly, is there more of a negative impact on women and women's groups when civic space is shrinking or closing? And that is something that does need more research. My instinct would be to say, yes, I do imagine that, shrinking civic space has more negative connotations for women's groups, and that there's more restrictions in place than there would be for other groups. But again, that's just my own sense. It's not necessarily based on, very rigorous research and analysis. So that's something we have to do. And again, if any of your members just now were interested in carrying out that kind of research and sharing it with us, we'd be very happy. What Forus often does with ADA is it sort of supports the production of reports and then launches them at the international level, so to bring attention to the findings of the report. So we'd be very happy to do that, and maybe to carry out some of our own research as well on the gender impact of closing civic space. So thanks for that suggestion, and it's certainly something we'll keep in mind.
Thank you so much. So now Sarish is from Pakistan, Deirdre, and she also presented civil society statement on behalf of Pakistan last in New York. We were able to bring her to New York. So thank you so much. Yeah, please feel free if you have anything that you want to be featured or want to be published, or any report form, please get back to us and we'll be very helpful. We'll be very happy actually to support you all. And so with that, if we do not have any further question, I know we're already kind of stepping towards the closing of this 2 days event, but I hope you all can, benefit, especially some of the presenters, some of the civil society people from Timor-Leste. We have Coco, who is in and out. I think he has some problems joining the internet. But Coco, if you're here, if you can listen to us, if you want to say something, Coco is heading the FONCTIL. FONCTIL is a civil society network from Timor-Leste.
Yes.
Coco, if you want to say something.
Yes, just to say that warm welcome from Timor-Leste, and I'm happy to join this session. And yes, I'm recognized that in our site is the internet connection is very poor, and then it's not running like as normal. So, but thank you very much. And then just the idea I was sent to you yesterday. It is the situation that we have related to the VNR, the second one for this year. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Coco. Yes, sure. We will express. We will address all those things that you have raised, because we had a VNR guideline, Deirdre, and we are trying to. And we are trying to every year, we do Asia Pacific fact sheet on VNR. So this year again we have kind of got all the inputs presenting to the UNSCAP, but before that we will do a report. So we'll share with all of you. We share with our global member, like partner, like Forus, and for all your inputs before we submit to the UNSCAP later in March. So we have hardly 1 month. We have to do a lot of stuff, but we will try to all the addresses. Thank you so all the key concerns.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, just to inform you that like in Timor now, it's a bit different than last year. So, but this year we have an invitation from the government, from ANAP, and they asking the frontier to assign someone to join the technical team for VNR. So it seems that we are very closely with them, and but we will bring this one what we observe from the CSO side, and then just to disaggregate it to the government observation, and formulate to be as a Timor-Leste report for VNR. Yep.
That's a great thing that you so just our colleague from Maldives, they also got invitation from the government. Nizam was telling. Now we hear that you have also, so both of you are actually networks from Maldives and Timor-Leste respectively, and please keep us updated how your meeting with the government goes, and we have certain questions. I will talk to you, Coco, also. What can you ask to your government, and how can we
do
this coordination? So yes, thank you so much, because I think
thank you.
No, it's for us. I mean, we will try to, we'd like to support you, and we will see how can we strengthen this coordination mechanism in our region. So thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
If you
Yeah.
have no question, then I would like really wanted to thank you all my participants, and for your 2 days. Many of them have left, but doing this kind of workshop for 2 days could be a little strenuous. But thank you so much, and we shall all keep you updated. We will share all the presentations.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. Yep.
Thank you. And thank you, Deirdre, for being here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your support and solidarity for us.
You're
And
very welcome. And thank you for introducing me to all your members this morning, and look forward to hearing more about their experiences with engaging with the VNRs this year.
thank you so much. Yes, I'll share all the presentation, all the member presentation, and we will introduce you to the members who are presenting VNR this year again. So thank you
Excellent.
so much.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Have a good day, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are all. And
Thank you. Thank
I'll
you.
be in
Ciao,
touch.
ciao. From you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye bye.